We've got Minette Batters, the author of the Farm Profitability Review.
Farming profitability really matters. So I thought I have to take it on. But in the beginning, it was really difficult to find a way through.
I think the big key thing for me that came out was collaboration. As you said, Ali, I think it's now what happens next that's the important bit.
I guess I have to play devil's advocate a little bit with the DEFRA side.
You've got to know, Sophie's got to know, I've got to know the decisions that we're making. There is a long-term plan for us.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Meet the Farmers, The Big Debate. I'm Sophie Gregory.
And I'm Ali Hunter Blair, and I am so excited about this episode. Ever since the Farm Profitability Review was announced just before Christmas, and then also obviously the IHT announcement, there has been a lot going on. We've been away for a month, and it feels like it, actually. It's nice to see you again, Soph. This podcast, I think, is really important. We've got Minette Batters, the author of the Farm Profitability Review, coming on to talk about her review. And more importantly, I guess now that it's done, is what's next. And that's something that I'm really keen to learn about. I'm very keen to make sure that it doesn't become a dusty document that people don't look at ever again. And I'm sure Minette is too. So I'm excited about that. And we're also going to be talking about conferences that we've all been at. Just for context, we are recording this on Thursday, the 15th of January. It will be released tomorrow, Friday, the 16th of January. Please remember to subscribe. Also, thank you very much for questions. You sent us a lot of questions for Minette. I'm hoping we'll get through all of them. I'm not sure that we will. There was actually a lot, which is great. It's lovely to know that you're all listening and are engaged in what we are going to do next. So obviously, first question of the day is always, Sophie, where are you?
I am in an airport hotel in Ireland.
Of course you are.
I do actually farm, as you know, Ali. I'm a dairy farmer, for those who don't know. But the last 2 days I have spent at Positive Farmers in Ireland, and it's kind of my annual pilgrimage. It's that sort of positivity kick I get at the beginning of the year. Irish farming, they are serious about turning grass to milk. And for our system in the UK, there's not many specialist conferences on that topic. And I think, especially in a downturn, we all need a bit of positivity. So yeah, I am in an airport hotel currently. Where are you, Ali?
As always, Sophie, I am in my office because I never leave, apparently. But I have left. I have been to ORFC for the first time. But I've done some farming. So I've done actual real life farming in the last 2 weeks. I planted some spring barley into a growing cover crop because I'm very regen. It hasn't died yet. I usually just do it to get the neighbours talking and to give them something to mock me about. Because if they can mock me about something that I target, then they'll ignore all the things that I've got wrong. So I've done some farming. I planted some barley. I've been to RFC. I went to LAMMA yesterday, which was buzzing. It was absolutely heaving. It took us 48 minutes to do the last 1.5 miles into the NEC because I think it was just because it was so busy. But that was great.
Yeah, 3 of our team went to LAMMA and they absolutely love it. And actually, even Lottie, who loves cows, she had a great time there too. I think it's just a social occasion. I mean, on farm, we have let out cows over Christmas. So we had 10 days of grazing over Christmas, which also set our neighbours talking. I think they thought we'd lost the plot or the cows had opened the gate themselves. But when we did it every day for 10 days, then I think they just accepted that we really had lost the plot. Yeah, we've been drying off cows, so I'm actually milking quite a lot less now, ready for calving in it's quite scary actually, in only about 6 weeks' time.
I tell you what, it's going to come round because we're middle of January already, and suddenly the days are getting. I tell you what, I know I'm getting old, but the days are getting longer. Oh, it does make life so much nicer. The sun feels a little bit stronger when it does make an appearance. Although I think we've now got 2 weeks of wet weather, but which will rot my barley nicely. But we're going to move on to in the news things that we found interesting, and I have to start with ORFC because it was my first time going to ORFC. I've never been before. I've heard lots of things. I've never been to OFC either. Sorry, we should say we're so bad with acronyms. OFC is the Oxford Farming Conference, been going for 100-something years. ORFC broke out about 14 years ago, which is called the Oxford Real Farming Conference. So it's 2 conferences that have very similar people in the same city on the same day, which I find complicated, but that is how it started. So I went to the Oxford Real Farming Conference, which is the sort of breakout. I would say the chinos versus the dreadlocks would be my sort of collaboration on it. The diversity of people at ORFC was fascinating. I went to a session on seaweed to start off because I really liked, the thing for me for conferences is to go and learn about stuff you don't know about. And that's actually why I love this podcast, because we learn about stuff we don't know about. But there was a lady wearing antlers, like real big antlers. But she was owning it. Like, don't get me wrong. Charlotte Church was there. Charlotte Church opened the show, and then I was sat next to Charlotte Church at Waggers. I was just getting myself an ood on. And
Waggers? Sorry, what is Waggers for the down south that live in the middle of nowhere?
you don't get Wagamama's with you. I love a noodle. I love a noodle.
I have only been once in London, visiting a friend, and she took me there, and I'd never experienced it before.
That's also probably really awful of me, isn't it? Because I should be supporting some small little bakery that was in Oxford, but I needed something fast because we were supposed to be meeting with Ben. Anyway, and then sat next to me was Charlotte Church, who opened the Oxford Real Farming Conference with I think a freestyle song. ORFC, the Antler Lady, and seaweed will be the things that stick out with me from the news this week.
I mean, where do I start? I mean, I haven't picked one. There is Emma Reynolds' speech at Oxford Farming Conference. There's the farmer protest, both outside Oxford Farming Conference, but also outside the supermarket depots. David Exwood challenging for NFU president. That is going to be an interesting story to follow. Farmland prices fall 5% in 12 months. I'm finding that hard to believe, because still around us, there is still massive appetite to buy
I was going
land.
to say that has not happened in Herefordshire at all. But right, Frank, I found some hillside that's gone down in value. But yeah, Herefordshire, the prices are still strong.
Yeah, apparently it's now £8,700 an acre is an average. I mean, I think we're nearly double that where we are, but
Yeah,
I don't think many farmers who own land are optimistic about that. So, I mean, for someone who'd like to buy a farm one day, that is music to my ears, but in generally the sector probably doesn't welcome that. And then we are going to interview, as we've already said, Minette Batters. I'm so excited. She was the first female NFU president. I've been a fan ever since. How she has managed to do this report, I do not know in the time frame she's had, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting into the nitty-gritty with her. Our guest today is Minette Batters, former NFU president and now member of House of Lords, and probably most importantly of all, a tenant farmer in Wiltshire. She's here today to talk about her farming profitability review. Welcome, Minette.
Thank you.
Oh, hi, Nat. It's so good to have you on, but obviously, particularly after your last year's work. And our big debate question this week is, where do we go now with the Farm Profitability Review, now that you've spent the last 18 months of your life or so developing this document? And I guess my first question would be about the Oxford Farming Conference. Obviously, we've just come off the back of that, and Emma Reynolds' first speech, I suppose, post a Farm Profitability Review. So she obviously mentions the Food and Farming Board, which is one of your recommendations. What did you think of her speech? And I guess you've been obviously in communications with her for the since she took over.
Well, Ali, she of course inherited me, so a bit of a nervousness from my part in the autumn as to whether she was going to keep me on or not, and new farming minister as well, because Angela Eagle. So they're both very new to my work. They didn't ask for my work, but they took it on in full. I think to start off with, there were thoughts that they would give some high level remarks and spend time looking at my review, as to when they were going to come back. So I was really pleased that they announced the partnership board. It's very much modelled on New Zealand and the Borbia Food Board in Ireland as a partnership structure. And I think it's really important that we focus on the future retail out of home, but also procurement and growing our exports 30% by 2030.
I was there, actually. I was lucky enough to be at the Oxford conference, and the feeling in the room, with anticipation on what she was actually going to come out with. So I'm glad she has included some of your recommendations, and I'm looking forward to seeing her put some of it into action. A big part of the review, and one of the big themes, was potential of Brown Britain, which I think is super exciting. We see lots of countries really taking their produce to the export market, but also selling it within their own procurement. What does this look like in action? What do we need to change to make this happen, to make Brown Britain really stand out and be the sort of go-to?
So, Sophie, I think probably the most exciting thing here is that we are one of the most prized food markets in the world. 70 million people on an island. We know from what all the retailers are saying, that consumers want to be able to buy more British. So that's great. Our home market is really committed to less food miles, buying British, provenance, integrity, high standards. So there's, I think, a lot that we can do to grow our market share at home. But we've been lazy exporters, I would say, on the back of that. And this is really playing out in the dairy sector at the moment, whereby we've got an oversupply of milk and we've seen price plummeting and huge damage being done on the back of it. And it's why I focus so strongly on the market monitoring. We absolutely have to know, as an independent trading nation, how much is coming onto our market, where the opportunities are. You know, when the New Zealanders are here, they say these are the three things that we want to talk to you about for exports. We've got to get to that place, which is why I'm looking at that balanced scorecard approach, so we can have 3-year plans from retail of what sourcing commitments they want. You know, we're seeing a massive growth or demand for growth in the poultry sector, but an inability to respond to that market signal because of lack of planning permission and the length of time it takes. So there's various different things, and that's why there are 57 recommendations. But we've got to be much more ambitious about our exports, and we've really got to manage that supply and demand. That's so key for all sectors. For an oversupply, price comes down. That's the absolute fundamental point. And so we've got to manage our market much better than we have done to date.
The exports, obviously, you're looking at 30% in the next 4 years. We have been lazy exporters, but I don't know whether our home consumption has been as strong as it could be. I think we said somewhere it was 65% self-sufficient. We're down from 78% in 1984. Do we need to start at home? I just wonder whether, Sophie's the same, you know, and as you are, we're into sort of the education side as well, this sort of idea of the disconnect between farming and food in our country particularly. There's a part of me that wonders whether starting at home is where we need to be before we start pushing our boundaries.
Ali, at the end of the day, we need to do all of it, which is why the review very much focuses on the school curriculum, focuses on education, on whole foods becoming a vital metric in the 10-year plan for health. You know, we really need to close the gap between urban and rural. We really need, you know, every child having access not only to great British food, but to nature as well. I mean, I think it's horrifying the number of children that just don't get to access a green space. That is wrong. And if you look to other countries like Finland, Japan, the link between the natural world and food is intrinsic. And, you know, Finland is yet again the happiest nation in the world because its food culture is so strong. So we've got to do all of this. I don't think there's any one thing, but what I am really conscious of is as we negotiate trade deals, we are going to be importing more. And as we import more, we've got to be really careful that we manage that supply and demand model carefully. So I want to grow our market share, grow Brand Britain, you know, throughout retail, the out of home sector. You know, there's no regulation at the moment on country of origin. So, you know, you can say that it's a British Aberdeen Angus steak. There's no reason for anybody to be able to challenge that, because you can't challenge that because that country of origin, even the voluntary code, doesn't apply to out of home. So we need to do all of this.
Yeah, Minette, I honestly, you made my heart a bit warm when you started talking about the education piece, and Ali and myself are extremely passionate about this. Your report looks at sort of the workforce challenges as well, and I think by sort of embedding the food and farming in the national curriculum, we're not just accessing them as like future consumers, but also future workforce. You know, that is going to be such a struggle going forward, not just in the dairy sector. It is something that's going to limit our production going forward massively. Yeah, how do we change this? You know, how do we make it essential for every child to have access to green space, but also a farm visit, or actually learn how to cook is the big things? Because, you know, this is not just it's a crisis really, and it's a health, you know, it's a health thing too, isn't it? Because we need to, you know, if a child learns how to cook healthy food, then they're much more likely to make healthier choices as they're older, than impacting their health in the same way.
Oh, totally, Sophie. I mean, it's connected to everything. I mean, you'll see in the review, I talk about agriculture becoming part of STEM learning. science, technology, English and maths, agriculture and the natural world is going to be such a part, I think, of jobs of the future. AI is going to replace jobs in other areas. I think there are so many jobs in our sector that are going to be really, really exciting, but we're losing them. We've lost now food tech as an A level to a B tech. What I've really tried to do with this review is to create excitement and opportunity, not just be out there asking for things, saying, no, this is the solution to a lot of these challenges. And, I think learning to cook in schools, a curriculum that really does have agriculture embedded as part of STEM learning is going to be really good for society to close that gap. And we've expected people to work such long hours, as farmers. I was really struck by a lot of my evidence of how hard we are working and how hard we are expecting people to work in number of hours. And that's all going to have to change, because I think Generation Z is far more in touch with their work-life balance. I spoke to a fantastic farmer in Wales who was talking about how they've got a waiting list for people who want to work on the farm because they just do 4-hour shifts. That isn't going to work for everyone, but I think the workplace is going to change a lot. But we want people to know about these jobs and be excited about it, as well as transforming our health. I mean, I talk about establishing Food and Drink England. I was really struck again by the devolved nations and how much closer they are to their rural communities, and they have local processing, which is all about local jobs in very isolated areas. In England, we don't have that. We have these diamond opportunities like the Devon Food Partnership, the Lincolnshire Food Partnership. But I noticed that in everything. And what I want to try and do is roll that out for the whole country, so we don't get these diamonds in paper crowns that I've referred to.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of that, because it feels like we miss an opportunity as such a small community to collaborate and sell ourselves, which is what you advocate in across this entire review, is this, that we need to do better at selling ourselves, actually, and not sit there as price takers and actually add value to the produce. I mean, I sit here as a cereals farmer, not practicing what I preach at all, sat with the commodity market on the floor, with no real profit. Well, no real profit in the last year, but no real view for it increasing, going, my whole thing now is, how can I add value to what I grow? Because I'm actually growing something that is swamped in the world. I'm a small tenant farmer in the grand scheme of things. And actually, I've almost fallen out of love with growing stuff that people don't want, for a very generalized review of it. I also, on the back of that, and on the back of what you were talking about other countries, I really enjoyed the piece about Australian made. And Red Tractor have obviously had a bit of a sticky wicket over the last couple of years. Some of it has been self-enforced, but I feel like there's an opportunity here to almost relaunch that, along with the nutrient density. You talk about this health crisis that we are in. I feel like there's such an opportunity here to almost follow the Australian made model. It's this collaboration. We've actually had a load of listener questions all about collaboration, where we are in a world now, especially the UK, where we need to be working more together, yet we seem more divided. I'm wondering how we can do that, how we can, I don't know, bang some heads together almost, and actually get people to collaborate.
Yeah, I think, I mean, you heard it throughout the Oxford Farming Conference. It was a constant recurring theme, and there are so many reasons for needing that collaboration. I was really struck by what you said at the beginning there about the decisions you're making on farm, what you're growing. What I've tried to do is really join up the national plan with the plan that we as individual farmers are making on farm, because quite honestly, for the last 10 years, well, certainly since 2020 when we left the EU, we've been making decisions on farm with no idea what the national plan is. And that makes it really, really difficult. We need to know the flows of rain that are coming into this country. We need to know where it's going within the four nations. And we need to be ambitious about the future. I mean, I talk about the fundamental need for an SFI scheme, a sustainable farming scheme that has profit built into it. Because if we're going to do all of this and we're going to achieve the government's plan for the environment and be compliant with the Environment Improvement Plan. Our farmers are the only way we do it, but I don't believe we've joined up that plan at a farm level with the national plan. And I think the opportunity now to be growing more pulses. I was talking to the Food Foundation last week. They've got a massive drive on protein crops. How do we produce more beans here, more peas here? But without investment and just focusing on a commodity market globally, they are not affordable things to grow, but they are public goods. They are soil beneficial. There is a public demand for them. I mean, I'm really excited to think, could we be soya free in 10 years' time? That would be fantastic. We've got precision breeding, but we've got to join up this national plan with the individual plan on farms. And that is what this sets out, a process, a boring process, if I'm honest, to start the 25-year farming roadmap that we can't, 3 years for the SFI isn't a long enough commitment. We need a 10-year commitment. As you're seeing retailers, processors, pilgrims saying, we want a 20-year contract. This is what we're offering you as farmers. We've got to know, you've got to know, Sophie's got to know, I've got to know the decisions that we're making. There is a long-term plan for us.
I think, sorry, just to put off the back of that, I think 3 years is too short, but there's the landscape recovery programs that have been sort of slowly but surely coming to agree. I was chatting to people yesterday at LAMMA. They're talking about increasing them to 30 years, and people are a little bit nervous now about that being too long. I wonder where the sweet spot is, because 3 years is probably too short. For an SFI and an arable farm, it works really nicely. Like, you can work with your rotation. I think the old mid-tier stuff at 5 years was actually about the right position, and the higher tier at 10. Yeah, these landscape recovery, and obviously we're in the Wide Valley, big on landscape recovery. We've obviously got a few of our own issues. I wonder where is that sweet spot, because 3 is too short, 30 is potentially too long. We need long-term vision, but people are terrified of tying stuff up too much.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good point. I think 5 years minimum, personally. 3 years isn't long enough. 5 years minimum, and 10 years, aiming for that, I think is achievable. 30 years is a very long time. My criticism of landscape recovery is that it's back to the diamond territory. You've got these diamond niches that are beautiful, they're lovely if you're in them, but if you're outside of them, well, what about you? And what we want, and my proposal on the catchments, is to establish landscape recovery across the whole country. I mean, where you're farming, very different to where I'm farming, different things in different areas, but let's not create. I mean, I'm looking back at what Michael Gove was saying in the beginning, and this absolute focus on, we do not want these monies going to large landowners. We want to make sure that we are achieving much more for everyone. But landscape recovery, the larger the landowner you are, whether you're the National Trust or an institutional landlord, then of course you're in a much better position. So we must roll this out across the whole country and bring in private sector funding as well, which is a big part of my recommendations, working on the cluster initiatives.
We've got some great examples, like you said, cluster groups all working pretty well. It's just how we get them working throughout. The dairy roadmap is become a really good success. It's a great story, and I think as an industry we're probably quite far in front with that. We've probably been put under pressure to be quite far in front with that. But how do we get to a point where that's the normal? And do we need the merger of things like TIA, AHDB, UK Agri Centre? Do they need to become one to make this sort of unified across the country?
So again, if we look at Ireland and what they've achieved with Teagasc, which is about technical advice to farmers and research, and the Borbia Food Board, my work is very much modelled on that. Because what I was horrified at, Sophie, is that everything is in different places. You've got fantastic catchment sensitive farming, but that's even in natural England. You've then got AHTB, which deals with less sectors than it did. You've got the UK Agritech Centre that doesn't have a direct relationship with farmers. And then you've got TIA, which is all about CPD and professionalisation, and that's got limited funding. And quite honestly, we're just not going to have it unless we look to a different structure. So what I've tasked the industry with over a 2-year period is developing sector missions, very like dairy has done with the dairy roadmap. Where do we want to go and how do we want to get there? Do we want research in this area? I mean, in Ireland, I was really struck that dairy and pigs are investing in research. Beef and sheep aren't. They have just chosen to go with the Borbia Food Board approach. They're not investing in research. So the power must stay with the farmers. But I think if we can develop these sector missions, we can then look at our research priorities. We need to get more funding from commercial research projects into sectors and subsectors. The sectors are very different. So that's why I'm saying the sectors must own their own sector missions effectively. What are the plans for growth? What are the plans for export? Some, like poultry, will be pretty much totally focused on the home market. So there's different things in different sectors. But I do think we should be aiming to bring everything into one place. I talk about developing the sustainable farm service. And actually, Jeff Sampson has written an interesting post on LinkedIn about this. If we could bring everything together, that is going to be so much easier for farmers. And what I was struck with in the beginning was, I want a farmer to be able to go on their phone, one dashboard, everything that they want is in one place. And at the moment, people have to go to about 50 different places to find different things. So I think AHDB and TIA and UK Agritech Centre, just a shout out to Steve McLean, who's just come in as the CEO of the UK Agritech Centre. That's a great appointment. He's been so many years as head of ag at M&S, and he knows farming as well as anyone. So I'd love to think that we can bring this together.
That's great to hear. And I think that will install some of that much needed confidence, because that definitely came out in your report that we need to install confidence and trust back in. One of the questions I really want to ask you is, have you enjoyed this process? Have you enjoyed writing it? I was lucky enough to input at one of your roadshows, and the amount of work that must have gone into writing this. Have you actually enjoyed the whole experience, Minette?
In all honesty, Sophie, it's been a roller coaster. To start off with, everyone was saying, oh gosh, you're mad to do it. And there's nothing you can do. A lot of people saying there's nothing you can do. I thought, well, it's crazy. I can't sit in the House of Lords. Farming profitability for me on my farm is everything. And all the work that I did at the NFU, farming profitability really matters. So I thought I have to take it on. But in the beginning, it was really difficult to find a way through. The industry asked so much. If I submitted all the asks that I had, there would be well over 400. So everybody was saying different things. I didn't disagree with them, but they were all saying different things. And I really engaged. So I engaged, that meeting that you came down to at Yo Valley, I engaged with all sectors everywhere and listened to them. And that is the strength of the review, is the people that I listened to. I didn't shut myself in a box and do this on my own. I did this with the whole industry and with individual farmers contributing. And that's what's made it so strong, that this is the industry's farm profitability review. It's referred to as mine, but, it is an industry review because they contributed so much to it, and the recommendations are their solutions. So I can honestly say at the beginning, in the middle, it was hard. And I had a few days whereby I was I can't tell you how tough it was, quite honestly. It was really, really tough. But then when I got to the end, and I was working every weekend, every day, late into the night, writing it. And by the end, I submitted it. And I was actually really excited. I thought, this can work. This really can be great. And I think for so long, my lifetime, we've been in the European Union. We haven't stepped back and said, what do we want for this country? What do we want for food and farming that we can design and we can take forwards? That for me is the exciting thing, that we can do this differently and position our place in the world, I think, as leaders on maintaining growing food production, but impacting less. And that's the sort of critical thing. How do we cut those costs out? So I was really excited by it in the end, Sophie, but not necessarily throughout the whole thing.
Well, you've done a fantastic job, Minette. I know a lot of friends are making their way through it, especially over Christmas. Definitely gave us something to dig into.
It's an unbelievable project, and to come up with so many recommendations. I guess I have to play devil's advocate a little bit with the DEFRA side. Your agri-growth hubs, which I completely agree with, getting more farmers into DEFRA to talk about boots on the ground type stuff, as opposed to a lot of farmers always criticize, saying, well, it's all people in London making decisions. They have no idea what they're doing. But then 4 days after your report comes out, they very unannounced announcement of this IHT change, and then suddenly my trust in the government drops again because it feels calculated. Everything feels calculated. It's all for hits. It's all for give the farmers something. This profitability review has come out. There's a lot of recommendations. There's a lot of challenge in there for the government. I tell you what we'll do. We'll increase the IHT thing. The farmers will go quiet, and we won't have to worry about Minette's report. And there's the cynic in me, and I'm trying not to become like my father, as cynical as he is, but I become more cynical the older that I get. The cynic in me there goes, we've got Minette's report. It's a lovely document. What we'll do is we'll file it up here now because we've given them IHT and we'll never speak about it again. And I guess bringing it back to our first question, what's next? How do we make sure, how do we hold them accountable? How do you hold them accountable, I guess, to make sure that some of these actions are actually carried out and it doesn't become a dissertation that's put on a shelf and we never speak about it again?
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, the number of reports that are written and, they never see the light of day again. But this, I would say, because I engage so much with the industry knows this work well because they all contributed to it. And I think it depends as much on the whole industry. So I was talking to the CLA the other day. They were very, very vocal about the need for the agri-growth hubs, regional focus so that we can really be dynamic to what different regions want. This needs the whole industry to get behind it. And, when I talk about AHTB and TIA and the UK Agritech Centre working together, I really mean they will have to work together. We focus everything on asking government. I think there's a lot that we, the industry, can do to help ourselves and to support them. So, the olive branch is out there on partnership. Much will depend on us stepping up and doing our bit, which is why I talk about 2 years, 6 months industry review with government, 12 months they review with government, and then I re-review in 18 months' time. Otherwise, we will just kick the can down the road. And, a lot of what I'm recommending isn't new. If we look at the Food and Drink Sector Council set up in Theresa May's time, the automotive sector, the aerospace sector, other sectors all got their act together and said, these are the 3 things and we want to be part of the industrial strategy, and they are. Food and drink, we're not part of it because we couldn't get agreement on what the future should look like. So for me, this depends as much on the industry as it does on the government. And, I'm pretty stark about the future. If we don't get this together in the next 2 years, we are going to see a very different farming sector. And I want to do all I can to avoid that, but it needs a lot of people to step up.
I think you're right. I mean, you spoke immediately. One of the first things in your report is your initial bit is that when you were with the NFU, trying to get the government to consider it was not possible because they went 0.6% of GDP. We are not interested. But that is not the case. And we have not been good at collaborating. Like you say, the other industries got their act together. Together is the important word there, and actually presented a case. I sit here a little bit terrified as a 500-acre tenant farmer that in 5-10 years' time, there isn't a future if we don't do something about it. And I think that's why I'm concerned about this not going further. But I think you're right. I think you've written the report. It has gone to DEFRA. It has gone to government. But it is up to us. It has to be up to us because at the end of the day, we're businessmen and women. We are people that want to run a successful business. We can't rely on government all the time. Yes, we need support. Yes, we need a long-term strategy. But we have got to do it ourselves, and we've got to do it together. Yeah, I mean, I think the report is fascinating. It's that next step for me is so important, and it's making sure that people who matter actually listen to what you've written. And yeah, I hope they will. I know that you'll be pushing it all the time. I know that you're not going to sit back. You never seem to sit back and take a rest. So I'd just like to thank you so much for coming on here to talk to us. It's great to have it verbalized as well. I'm not a particularly good reader, so it's great to have it verbalized and be able to discuss it with you. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us, and I'm hoping that we'll see you sometime very soon.
Oh, I'm so grateful to come on and talk about it. Everybody is saying, oh gosh, when I hear you talk about it, it starts to really make sense. It's a bit of a complicated read. It's a bit of a heavy read. But actually, when you talk about it, I think people start to, it brings it to life. But yeah, just massive thanks to you and Soph for having me on.
Meet the Farmers, the big debate is supported by TELUS Agriculture and Consumer Goods, the team that has brought together Farm Plan and Gatekeeper. Their ongoing investment equips farmers with the tools they need today and those they will need to face tomorrow's farming challenges. We're using their farm management software on our farm for spray plans, stock control, and much, much more, designed to give you complete control of your data and simplify your day-to-day operations. Whether you are tracking your inputs, managing costs, or planning ahead, TELUS makes your business more efficient and informed. Find out more at telus.com/big debate. Once again, that's telus.com/big debate. Oh, Soph, it's so good to have Minette on and to verbalise the report. I guess I'm not a particularly good reader, as I have mentioned before. I thought it was fascinating to hear her actual insight.
It is such a big document. So I feel like hopefully we dug into some bits that you guys will be interested in. But I think the big key thing for me that came out was collaboration and the potential of that British brand. Like, I think we've not fully dug into that British brand. But as you said, Ali, I think it's now what happens next that's the important bit.
Yeah, and I think it's trying to work it out. There was a lot of the questions that we had in from you guys that listen was a lot about this collaboration. We had 3 or 4 different people messaging about the same thing, particularly off the back of OFC and ORFC. It was interesting to hear her view on how we think that the collaboration can work and whether we think that needs to change on the government side. But also, I think it's important that we challenge ourselves in this. I still struggle to work out how we make sure that it doesn't become something that gets filed away. I still believe fully that the IHT announcement was targeted completely at the fact that this document had come out, and there is a lot of challenge in there to the government. It's all about metrics, and that still gives me a challenge to trust the government. And I guess that's something that is so important at the moment for us, and probably for most of the people that listen to this. Trust in the government is at an all-time low, I would say. And these unannounced announcements that no one knows anything about doesn't help to bring that, and it doesn't then drive collaboration. And I think that's something that we've had so much communication about the collab side, that we've got to make sure that we can trust the people that we're trying to collaborate with.
I actually could not get over in the review that we probably didn't touch on it enough, actually, but 72% of respondents were not confident that changes would lead to a successful future, and 65% were not confident at all that DEFRA and agencies can deliver changes. I mean, that is just not, that's not a wobble, that's a collapse, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, I'm hopeful personally, but that's probably just me naturally, but we need to restore some of that trust, don't we, Ali?
Yeah, we absolutely do. And the problem with this report is that we could have talked to Minette for hours. There's so much more that we needed to challenge her on. Probably we've probably done a half job, but that's just because of time limitations for everybody. There's so much that she wants to do, and it's this integration with DEFRA. Emma Reynolds has come out, at OFC and already announced some of the changes. She has mentioned things that Minette has mentioned in her report, so she's obviously read it, which is a great start, I guess. It's driving that forward, and it's still, our topic, the whole topic was what's next, because otherwise we sit there and we file it, and in 6 months' time, nothing has changed. We've got this SFI announcement at OFC as well, so that is, I guess, a positive step, because we actually now know that something is going to come out. Again, all these steps, they're baby steps, and they are slowly starting to breed some sort of trust. It's just so low. I would love to question Emma about, to be honest, because I want to know how we can rebuild the trust that has been lost.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Farming and Food Partnership Board, that is something that's happening in other countries already. So I think it is quite a replicable thing, and it's something that's had great success. And I think that's the important thing, is that that actually this isn't just something that where we look within England and what we're already doing. We're actually looking outside and trying to take ideas from other countries that are actually working. So I think that's a great point to start, real life examples. And I think we've got a bit of that collaboration already in the sector. I touched on the dairy roadmap a bit, but it's actually, we need to get out these silos, because as an industry together we're stronger. And I think that was a big part of the report, is that collaboration and getting away from silos. And I'm glad that Emma Reynolds did mention that Farming and Food Partnership Board, because there was the opportunity there to just not mention the report at all.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially after her IHT announcement, she could have just ridden on the back of that, saying, "Look at what we've given you." Yeah, it's good that it was mentioned. I think it was interesting also because I had a DM that said that maybe the review isn't radical enough, and actually Minette mentioned it there, saying that some of the stuff that she's written it's not groundbreaking, but it's just all bits that need to be put together into one document, and they are important pieces that everyone has already said, but they've never actually been put together. It's always been, and I guess that's where we become a bit disbanded. It's somebody saying this, somebody saying that, like STEM education, people have been talking about it for years, LEAF particularly, Open Farm Sunday, the health crisis, other people have been talking about that, but it's never been put down into one document. We didn't get to quiz her about whether she could have been more radical, she could have been more right wing, where she could have been more left wing, she could have been more flying with all the wings, I don't know, but she could have potentially had some more wacky and radical ideas. I mean, I know ORFC is full of some great ideas. We're going to be talking a bit more about that later, and some of them are really alternative. And I think that sometimes we do as an industry get stuck in our ways. We are very stuck in our ways. In agriculture, it's something that we're very good at. It's trying to make sure that we get the important things done first, I guess, before we go to the radical ideas.
With all of this, we try and bring it back down to the farm for you guys, the listeners, because I think that's the important bit, that we're sort of digesting quite a big document and sort of bringing it back to farm. And, Minette said it's down to us now. So I think it is quite empowering that we could make a difference as a farmer on farm. I've got a very young team, actually my main people on farm, 3 girls, and I want them to feel that there's confidence in the future of the sector. And I'm really glad that she highlighted some of that essential work that needs to be done on connecting people to food and farming, and then also as an option as a career, because I think we're not just talking about consumer there, we're talking about workforce, and it's going to be a massive barrier for a lot of sectors going forward. And I'm so pleased that she highlighted that, because I think often that gets overlooked.
And workforce is always going to be something I've mentioned on the podcast before. I'm sure that you guys have listened, that I don't want to employ currently because I find the whole thing quite stressful. And I think that's a really negative way for me to look at it. But everything that we do in the business, which I've spoken about before, is to make sure that we're not employing, to do things that don't require employment. And that's probably just me because, again, as I said before, I had an amazing employee and I'm never going to be able to replace him. I just think that she puts it on us, and absolutely has to be put on us. But we also have to question this AHDB tier UK Agri-Tech Centre. We have to question their value and make sure that we do get value from something that every single farmer pays into, to be able to get that value. And it was interesting to see her views on that, and trying to make sure that we can get value from both sides of the sector to, quite frankly, drive us forward. Because otherwise, as she said, the UK farming sector looks very different in 5 to 10 years' time.
I'm excited about this report. It's just, next steps and empowering the right people to make action.
Yeah, and I think that's a lovely place to end this part. I think to be honest, we're going to have to get Minette back. That's what we're going to have to do. Maybe we'll get Minette and Emma Reynolds together. We're going to have to get her back because there's so much more to discuss, and hopefully in the next 6 months we're going to see some real change, and it won't have been filed. So I think getting her back to talk about changes that have been made, or how she is still pushing this forward in the House of Lords, is going to be really important. So we're going to talk about conferences now. We're both coming off the back of OFC, ORFC, or both in Sophie's case. Ben, I think, was at the dinner that is trying to join, maybe collaborate, as we've been talking about for the last 25 minutes, collaborate the two conferences. I went to LAMMA yesterday, which was absolutely buzzing. And you are in Ireland, Sophie.
Yeah, no, so I've been in Ireland the last day for Positive Farmers, which is fantastic, just a grass-based conference focusing on profit. And we just need positive events like this more than ever in the dairy sector right now. This time of year, I think they're positioned in this spot to give everyone a lift going into the new year. It is definitely conference season. You touched on the Oxford conferences. I think that those Oxford conferences have never been closer together but far apart, if that makes sense. Can they be both? But people are swapping between them now, and I don't think we saw that before. We're getting people that I would never expect to be at one and then the other way around, and I think that's great to see. I mean, what more is to come? I don't know.
Like you say, it is conference season again. LAMMA yesterday. I tell you what, especially in LAMMA, it's quite targeted towards arable. I guess it's massive kit. I took Harry with me, who was a 3.5-year-old, was eyes on stalks, couldn't believe there was so much equipment. It's I don't know, there's something about the social element of it that even if like cereal prices are in the doldrums, dairy prices are on its way down. I mean, if beef and sheep are doing well, chickens are doing well, but like farming it's mediocre at best, probably to put it nicely. There's something about a social event that gets people off farm, and even if you are just chatting to your mates that have probably driven up with you, it's lovely to walk around. And there was a real buzz yesterday, and I'm sure Positive Farmers is the same. There was a real buzz of positivity around the show. I mean, the fact that it's now moved to a nice, warm, dry location helps. But that's what's so important, I think, about conference season almost is the social side of it. Get people to realize that actually, like you say, it's almost it's a shot, isn't it? It's a shot of positivity.
Going into February, there's more and more, with Dairy Tech coming up, Rootstock in Devon, another one. I'm reading these now, but a Tractor World show in Malvern. Yeah, so there's something for everyone. So hopefully we'd love to hear from you guys on what conferences are your favourite, which ones you avoid. So yeah, do send us some suggestions for us to attend as well. Hopefully we're going to get out on the road a bit more. Thank you everyone for listening. Please subscribe to the show if you don't already. Message us on socials, comment below if you're watching on YouTube, or email thebigdebate@ruralpodmedia.co.uk. Massive thanks to our headline partner, Virgin Money, because this wouldn't be possible without them. And as well, our associate partners, Birketts and TELUS Agricultural Consumer Goods. We'll be running an Ask the Expert bonus episode in a couple of weeks with Birketts. I'm really looking forward to that. We're going to be covering the hot topic of IHT, tax, succession planning. So please tune in for that. Please subscribe and share, and we'll be back in a fortnight. Ben will be with you on Monday.
Meet the Farmers, The Big Debate is supported by UK top 50 law firm Birketts. Birketts expert lawyers can help you manage your estates, businesses and assets. From succession planning to environmental compliance, Birketts offer practical, tailored advice to your needs. Whether you're a landowner, farmer or agribusiness specialist, the team can support you in achieving your goals and safeguarding your future. Find out more today at www.birketts.co.uk/ag.